Testifying is important because you need to get your point across. You're going to walk into a room full of people who come from different backgrounds, different areas, not know anything about your specific area or where you come from, and you are trying to convey a message to them of why you need something, why something's good, or why something's bad. And by doing this, ultimately, you're trying to achieve your goal of passing or not passing a bill. You want to be efficient when you walk up. You want your material that you're going to be going off of sitting in front of you. You don't want to be shuffling around for 2 minutes trying to find what you're going to read or your talking points. So remember, as you're coming up, have everything out of your folder, have it ready, get it positioned in front of you, get the microphone in front of your mouth where you're going to be able to speak into it. So that's one of the important things. You can't burn time up as you're getting ready to talk. In a lot of hearings, you're going to be limited, maybe 1 minute, maybe 2 minutes, and if it's okay, 3 minutes of testimony. And another important thing, you have absolutely nothing to say that's going to help yourself if it's longer than about 2 minutes. If you overtalk it, you're doing yourself a disservice. You know, in my off time, I'm a construction worker, I'm a rancher. I would never come up here to Helena, Montana wearing a set of work boots or some beat up Wranglers. So for you gentlemen, if you're coming up to testify, wearing a long sleeve shirt is a very good idea. You want to wear a suit jacket if you had one, wear a tie if you have one and you know how to tie it correctly. For ladies, if you're stepping into a committee, you need to be wearing the appropriate attire. Something professional, or at least semi-professional in fashion, and speak loudly, especially for the ladies. Oftentimes, we use their quiet voice. They'll come up, you don't have the microphone position, you're over here, you're talking really quiet. Remember, you're here to get your point across. You're here to tell a story, to send a message. Adjust everything, speak into the microphone, and use a good loud speaking voice. So if I'm gonna do an initial testimony, I would walk up to the stand, have everything organized, stick it down, adjust the microphone, and I would say, Mr. or Madam Chair. So, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, my name is Jason Small, S-M-A-L-L. It's very important to spell out your last name at least. If you have a name that's tough to identify here, or it has an unconventional spelling, spell it out. Once again, my name is Jason Small, S-M-A-L-L. And today I am here to testify on Senate Bill 111. And then you go into your testimony, should be short and sweet. You don't want to repeat everything you heard directly behind you. Repetitive motion makes it where the committee is going to quit watching, they're going to stop paying attention. And when you lose the committee and you lose their attention, you've become ineffective at that point. So stay on topic, don't deviate from your topic, and get your point across. One of the huge problems we have, right? We get a microphone and we start talking and they tell you, you have 2 minutes to testify. So oftentimes, what do? Grab the microphone. Hey, how you doing? How's it going, everybody? My name is, oh, I know your cousin. Yeah. Oh, let me tell you about the story when I was just driving up. And what do you mean? 2 minutes, right? That can't be the end of my 2 minutes. I have seen 100 different times where somebody come up, grabbed the microphone, started talking gibberish, talked about the drive up here, never even got to testify. And it happens constantly. So be extremely cognizant of the time that you are allotted when you're standing up here. Come up, brief introduction, hello, my name is, and then let's get to business, right? The reason why this bill is important to me is bam, bam, bam. Make your point, drive that point home, and then step away. Don't stop in the middle to tell somebody a story. I don't care if your dog fell in a dumpster yesterday and you spent 5 hours washing him off in your shower. That's not why you're here. It might be a funny story for later, but just remember, stick to the point. People don't like negative. I don't care who you are. You may feel like this group is picking on you, this bill's picking on you, you're getting singled out. But the last thing anybody sitting on that committee out there wants to hear is negativity and you accusing them of doing something. Because That bill didn't come from a collective group. That bill came from one person. I think it might be kind of important to keep that in perspective, right? You're not trying to get down on a whole group of people, well, you're just going to do this, or you guys just think I do this because. That is not effective. You lose your committee. They're going to quit listening to you as soon as you start accusing them of stuff. At that point, basically, there was no sense in even coming up to testify. You probably just hurt the situation. If you are using quotes or you're using statistics, make sure you have a credible source and you're able to back those up. Because oftentimes you'll be called back up during question and they will want to know your source, where you got your information. So be prepared to be able to spew out a source or have it written down. Or if you're bringing written testimony to back yourself up, make sure you have a copy for everyone in the room, well, for everyone in the committee plus the secretaries, and you can have your sources on that, and then you turn that in when you're done. But you have to ask the chair's permission. So as you're done speaking, say, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, is it okay if I leave this written testimony with you guys? And you can do that at the start or finish. If you have good graphics or a bunch of information you would like them to be able to read through as you're testifying, give it first. If you don't have graphics or a bunch of stuff like that, give it last. It's very important because you have 1 to 3 minutes to get your point across generally. You have to stick to the point, drive your message home, and do it in a manner that the committee and the people listening to you can understand the point you're trying to make. You still need to remember to make 3 key points. You need the committee to understand why this bill is important to you, to your community, and last, to the rest of Montana. And that's how you really drive the point home. Yeah, what'd you ask me? Oh, God, I don't know. They just told me to say that. I don't know. That is a huge one right there. You come up here, once again, you want to be presentable. If you have a shirt, tuck it in. Button up your collar. Wear a tie if you have one. Be very attentive when you get to the stand. They're asking you a question, and generally, the reason you're being asked a question is because either there was a lack of clarity, or sometimes somebody's trying to tee you up to ask you a question to manipulate an answer out of you that is beneficial for your cause. Don't automatically assume when you walk into this room that everybody already hates you and get offensive and get defensive. Don't come up here. Don't accuse people in a testimony and you're racist because, ooh, that one hurts. That one hurts our cause because we fail as a collective group oftentimes to read the room. And you need to understand that odds are when you're coming up here to testify or to do something, more than likely, nobody else in the room is coming from a situation like yours. They're not going to know your background. They're not going to understand why things are the way they are for you. Don't just automatically assume, get defensive. Don't be brash with people. Oftentimes, we need to not assume because they're asking questions or not assume that some bill comes up that's bad for us. Don't assume that everybody in the room is effectively trying to hurt you because that's not the case. Almost everything bad comes from just certain little groups, and oftentimes most of it is because they just don't understand the different situation that a lot of people live under. You need to make sure that everybody that gets up to the podium says something original. Don't repeat. So the person before you, make sure you're listening to them. And if you have 25 seconds of something they already mentioned, try to bypass that. Don't repeat exactly the same thing they did, but go through your testimony and see if you can think of a different item to bring up that still aligns with why you're there. So that's still meeting the purpose of why you're testifying. Focus should be really simple. You came up here to testify on a bill, and you're either in favor of it or you're against it. But whatever you do during the course of your interaction with that committee, do not deviate from the point. Stay focused. If you are using quotes and you're going to quote a historical figure, if you're going to be quoting statistics or numbers, Make sure it's from a credible source and make sure you have the ability to back up that quote. You don't want to get called up in questions for a question later and not be able to substantiate or tell the committee where that came from, where that number came from, or what the statistic was that you brought up. If you go negative in a testimony, especially if you start negative, you lose your audience right off the bat, and then all of a sudden, nobody cares. So if you're keeping it positive, you keep it up tempo, do the best job you can, even if it's a hard subject to be positive about, you will keep everybody actively listening and trying to understand where you're coming from, and that's how you make your point across. There's several ways to utilize it. One key point to having written testimony, if you went through the time to write all of it, print it off, make enough copies for the committee, when you go to the podium, do not flip it up and read verbatim from it. Make your key points, give what I would consider a little bit of a speech, look around the room, hit all your hot topics, hit your topics, your reason why, your reason not why, and then be done with it and give the testimony in. Don't read it verbatim. For testimony, keywords and practice, practice, practice. The reason you want to testify to a bill is because it affects you, your family, and your community.